Welcome to Driven, the Unscripted Success podcast, with your hosts, Mike Mannino and Nariman Hamden, bringing you insights and stories on achieving personal, professional, and financial success.
Hi, everybody. It's Michael Mannino, and welcome to Driven Unscripted Success podcast. Today on the podcast, we're interviewing professionals who share their experience with you on how they got to where they're at today. And zooming from the beautiful island of San Francisco, we got Thanos. How you doing, young man?
I'm doing excellent. Thank you.
And he's got a really unique name company called Cosmic Teacups. I was talking to him off camera about that. It's a pretty neat name and why it is the way it is. Hey, Thanos, do me a quick favor. Tell the audience who you are and how you got to where you're at today.
So I'm Thanos. I'm a software engineer by training. And over my software engineering career, I've been doing this for about 30 years. I was noticing that all the companies that push out software, they might know their software domain really well, but they have trouble getting software out the door. So about 3 years ago, I did a little bit of a shift. And instead of working for a particular software company and just helping them with their problems, I now coach multiple software companies of how to get software out the door faster, with better quality, and happier, because we always leave that one out, but that's one of the key ones that I want to look out for.
That seems to be the crux of the entire situation, happier. When you mean happy, you're talking about the customers and the user experience too, right?
Yes, if the customer is happier, usually everyone else becomes happier as well, right? When the customer is unhappy, that unhappiness tends to trickle down the org in many different ways. And if it doesn't trickle down the org, then you have a whole different set of problems.
So what is one of your tricks to make the customers happier? What's your systems and process that works where others have failed?
So I follow a 4-step framework, which is the first step is usually the most important step. So let's chat about that one. The first step is iterate, right? If you cannot get software out the door quickly, then nothing else is going to work in this process. So one of the first things that we look at when we debug any software team is from when you have an idea in your head, how long does it take till it's actually in production and in the customer's hand? Most companies that build software extract their value by putting something in the customer's hand or computer, right? You give them value, you get cash in some way, shape, or form. That's the basic life cycle of software business. So if you cannot go from idea to production in a fairly short period of time, your cash generating abilities are quite limited. So we try to first fix that one.
What's the next three so that we can dissect each one as we go?
I got you curious. All right.
Yeah, you did.
Once you get iterations going and you can get out quickly, the next thing you got to worry about is quality, right? Because if I'm pushing out terrible stuff, that's really not going to work. Now, a lot of people say, well, you don't need to have quality first. And the answer is no. If you can't push things to production and you can't fix a bug, you're never going to get quality. So you first have to be able to ship quickly. And once you can ship quickly, you have the ability to evaluate the output, see that you're coming up with bugs, and figure out the systems to put in place to fix that. So first we hit iterations, then we hit quality. When we've done that, what usually happens is you have a pretty good team, right? Now you're rocking and rolling with this thing. But then what happens is complexity starts building up. Oh, you want this feature. Oh, you want that feature. And things start building up. And then you start collapsing under your own weight. So the third thing that we go look at is how do we keep complexity under control? And this is software complexity, this is feature complexity, customer complexity, marketing complexity. There's lots of kinds of complexities that add up on there. So we got to take care of that so we can keep shipping with speed and quality. And then when we get that going, we go for planning and predictability. And I put that last because most people try to do that first. So most teams that are struggling, they bring someone in that's going to try and wrangle this and project manage it and say, hey, we got to ship this by then. And if you don't have the ability to do iterations and quality and manage complexity, you're never going to be able to get a schedule. So we will try to get all these first three things rolling. And then when we have these three things rolling, then we'll start stringing together. Okay, now we can do a week's worth of stuff. Let's think what the next month looks like. Let's think what the next 3 months look like. Don't really go often as out as a year because things usually in software change much faster than that. So that's my 4 steps. Now you can jump around, but if you're doing it completely backwards, you're probably doing something wrong. But depending on what your stage your company is at, you might jump to step 3, go back to a little bit for 2, and move it around a little bit. But generally speaking, I like to go through that flow.
I like your systems. That's the 4-step process. You're breaking it down. I call it Barney styling. And when you do it like that, it makes it easier for everybody to understand. Now, when you're dealing with customers, are they tech savvy or non-tech savvy? Is there a majority of what you do?
The majority of my customers are tech savvy, but I also have a few customers that are not from the tech savvy world. And that's especially where you can really add a lot of value, because if you're in Silicon Valley, a lot of the teams and already know a lot of the systems that work, and they may need an external viewpoint of how to implement them and what is the right thing for right now. But the less tech savvy customers need a lot more help from the very beginning. A lot of the places where they seem to struggle is even in the tech savvy world is the business side and the tech side often don't have a common language. A lot of the times the debugging and diagnostics people do is they don't have a way to communicate. The mental models that they use and the mental maps that they've painted of each of their situations don't intersect. So they speak past each other. We try to go in and create what I try to call constructive conflict, right? Where it's going to be
Constructive
negotiation.
conflict.
If everything is too smooth, then you're not really representing your side and your needs well enough. I like to explain there's usually 4 kinds of work. I borrowed this from the Flow framework, which you should look up. It's really awesome. But there's features that customers want, there's bugs that customers find, and the business will typically represent these kind of items, and they'll have their thoughts and their priorities. And then on the technical side, you may have some investments you want to make. You may want to go refactor some things. You may want to add some technology, remove some technology, hire some people. And there's some risk items. You might want to go upgrade some things because you get hacked. And the tech side would usually represent these things. And then you have to everyone has to understand this mental picture, and then you need to have sort of a negotiation of figuring out how you're going to fit all these things in your schedule and build them so that the needs of both sides are satisfied. Oftentimes these things will get hidden, and the tech team will say, we need to do these things, we just won't tell them. We'll just give them half our time and we'll just do these things on the side. Or some other teams will get pushed a lot harder, will never do these things, and then they collapse under their own weight because they built the complexity. So we try to get them to speak the same language to get the successful outcomes.
Successful outcomes. Gotcha. So so I call this fire stomping. What percent of your day is fire stomping outing?
0.
Nice.
Yeah. So we try to get out of that. If you're constantly firefighting and trying to deal with outages and bugs, you're in a really bad spot. So what we'll typically do is go and clean that one out because that just sucks up just all of your time. I have a tool that I use, and I give this to my customers, and I've recently made it available to everyone. We can chat about that at the end if you'd like, that sort of can visualize where you're at with where you're spending time. So we're spending time building features or bugs and so on. So if you go to one of these teams that are just constantly firefighting, you'll see the red bars are going to be just all over the place. And that's usually my assessment of, okay, we need to slow things down. We need to, if we're shipping stuff and breaking things, then we need to stop shipping stuff until we get this under control. And then usually we'll do some investments. So we'll have to go and figure out what is happening, fix these things. Imagine if you're spending 80% of your time doing bugs and 20% of your time doing features, right? If you could reduce that bug time in half to 40%, you tripled the available space for features. So if you could take a few weeks or a month off and do these investments, you could basically triple the meaningful output that you have here. So we kind of go through some of these diagnostics, and I think I don't have any super new clients right now, and the new clients that I have are fresh, so they're not in these messy situations. But for everything that is happening, that's one of the first things that you do is you get out of that mode, because that's going to burn out territory, right? That's where people just, I've had it being paged at Saturday at 6 p.m. and having to go deal with your mess because you didn't let me do this sort of investment over here.
Yeah. Can't fix stupid. I've seen that a million times when you tell somebody, hey, we should go this route, we should go this route, we should go this route, and then they don't, and then it doesn't work out that way. And you're like,
yeah, but see, when I was younger, I used to say it exactly like you'd say it, and say, you can't fix stupid. But I think a lot of times what I've seen it is the engineering team didn't explain to the business stakeholder in terms that they could understand what this impact would be if we don't do this investment, right? So often what I'll have to do is, okay, this discussion didn't happen. Hey, Mr. CEO or Chief of Sales, if you don't let them have this time to fix, this is where you're going to be 3 months from now. So you have to express it in terms they understand, and they'll be, oh, yeah, I don't want to be in that situation. Yes, let's carve some time to do this work in there.
that sounds like the right way to do it. That really does. I've seen a lot of people where they just say yes, sir, and then go on, and then they shoot themselves in the foot too. You're shooting the client and yourself in the foot at the same time.
Yeah. And I've made this analogy before. You would never hear a structural engineer say, we'll just build the bridge and then we'll go do the load calculations afterwards. And then when we have a little bit of traffic on the bridge, because when there's no traffic, there's no point having guardrails on the side. So we'll get a little bit of traffic going. So little traffic, there's not going to be any accidents. And then we'll just build the guardrails at the end. You would get fired. You would get sued. You would get kicked out of your professional associations. But as software engineers, we're all too happy to say, oh, no test? Yeah, ship it. We shouldn't do that. I think it should be professionally irresponsible for engineers to agree to that. And I think sometimes you might say, hey, you're preaching from a privileged position. If I say I'm not going to ship this, I'm going to get fired. But I think we need to change that culture, right? It shouldn't be a fireable offense to say, hey, this is irresponsible and I'm not going to do it this way. This is the right way to do this. This is how we're going to do it. Now, again, you can't ride that to the other extreme and saying, hey, I'm not going to ship anything until the tests are absolutely perfect and so on. There are ways to do this that are optimal or less
Same.
suboptimal. Yes,
Safer,
there's
not safest,
yeah,
safer.
exactly. So we can't look for perfection and we can't just be purist and dogmatic about this, but there's definitely some bad parts of the trade-off curve and we can move into better parts.
I like that trade-off curve. We do construction and building and stuff like that. And when you're doing new, it's a lot easier than doing remodeling. So is that the same thing in software? If you've got a website or a systems and process you got to work on, oh, wait a minute. This is 10 years outdated and we almost have to redo the whole thing.
So it used to be that way.
Oh,
And this was
really?
maybe, it used to be 3 months ago, I would say, I would agree with you. And it's easier with greenfield projects because you just build it the
Hmm.
right way from the beginning. The issue is now with AI, you can actually go clean these up in a fairly short period of time. So you can do really large architectural refactoring. So I said, yeah, there's a bunch of stuff in here that we really wouldn't want to have. And I've done this. I have a client that is a 12, 13-year-old client with me. We've got a software that is somewhere between 500,000 and 1 million lines of code. And it's not terrible, but it's been built over a long period of time and cruft had accumulated. And we didn't really ever have the time to fix it all. We just fix opportunistically. And in the last 3 months, with the help of agents, we could say, hey, that part we knew was terrible. It was like a huge rewrite. It took us 3 people for 3 years to fix. And one of my guys has fixed it over 5 weeks. So you
Really?
can really go in and clean some of that stuff and you can do it really safely. They have something they call the fig tree, where it's like there's a fig tree that will go over a tree and eat it until it dies. So the same thing is you can take existing software, build around it, and keep the interfaces at the top the same, and then start replacing the inside of the tree with newer stuff until you've basically subsumed it. So we can now do things that before you might do once or twice in your career. Now we do these routinely, these big refactorings, because we can, and we can also do them safely with not a lot of effort, just tokens.
So what do you think about, so you touched on it. Let's talk about AI. How has it affected your company and your industry?
I think this is one of the biggest changes that we have seen or we will see in the industry, possibly bigger than the transistor itself. Well, the transistor kind of enabled everything, but this is huge. I think there's a quote that went around recently that people that hate AI hate it just a little too much, or it's just people that are in the far ends are just a little too extreme. If you bring it in a little bit, then things begin to make sense. And I think that kind of resonates with me. I think this is going to change everything and it's going to change nothing. And when I say it's going to change everything, is like all the procedures, all the bottlenecks that you have are going to be shifting around and moving, and the software development lifecycle and businesses are going to look completely different. At the same time, it's going to change nothing because some of the principles that we've had are still the same. You cannot, if you had bottlenecks before, then AI is going to amplify these bottlenecks. It might move them around a little bit, it might change them, but if you had problems in shipping because you had too few of this or too many of that, or your process of collaborating here wasn't good, then adding AI to it isn't going to necessarily fix it. It might change it, it might move it around, but you still need to go figure out what your value stream is. Like, how do you go from idea to shipping something and making sure that process is smooth, and then use AI to accelerate the parts that are not working. You can use AI to fix the parts that are not working, but you just can't just sprinkle on top of an existing process and hope that's going to do something.
That's awesome. I love that you said that AI is going to help you. A lot of people are terrified it's going to take your job, but it really does make your job easier, if I'm not mistaken.
It definitely makes my job easier in many ways. I was finding myself building some custom dashboards because I had people and AI tools building me stuff, and they often didn't pass some checks that I was doing by hand. So I meant a dashboard that shows me every change that was proposed with some green lights. And if the lights weren't green, then it would have an explanation, and I could copy paste it to the right person or bot to fix it. And after I built this, I spent the next week just copy pasting things to people. I'm like, why am I doing this? The AI should be doing this. And then it's like the thought that was there for a minute. So if the AI did that for me for the whole week, what would I do that whole week? And the answer was super cool. I'm going to go find out the next productivity booster. So cool.
There you go.
So yeah, I think people are afraid of AI and it's going to change things. And I think the anxiety is warranted, but I would say lean into it. Okay, go find it, figure it out, use it. That's the advice I give to software engineers is yes, your job is going to go away if you do nothing. But if you figure out how to use it and how to leverage and how to be better at it and how to use it in places, you're going to be the wrangler that everyone's going to want to hire. And then when that even goes away, there's going to be a next level and a next level as the abstractions and this thing moves higher and higher. So be part of that as opposed to be resigned and go live in a cave.
Yeah, I agree with it wholeheartedly. We have continued education in our industry. To pull permits, you got to constantly learn. So you got to basically, that's exactly what you're doing. You're just transferring. And from the way you're making it sound, it makes it easier for you.
Definitely easier for me, and I think for everyone in the software industry, it's easier and different. It's we're not using the same thing as we're doing before. Before, you might be given a feature, and you might have to think through it by hand. You might have to go a bunch of research, see how it works, and then as you're writing it, you have to be always doing, how does this thing hook up to this thing? Now you can just bubble up a level and say, okay, help me navigate through this. It just writes you a spec in 2 minutes, and now you still need to read it and say, does that make sense? No, that doesn't make sense. Change this. But again, instead of spending half an hour changing it, you can just kind of read it and then dictate a couple of comments to it and saying, just fix these things. And then it will mostly go do it. And then moving over to implementation, it can be, okay, go look at our existing software and tell me how those pieces fit in. And again, as humans, we wouldn't have time to go read all the existing software and tell it how it fits in. So we would just kind of build it, and then it would break a few things and we go fix them. Now the AI can actually go read the existing software and tell you, okay, it fits in here and here, go make these changes there and there. And it's not going to be perfect. So we still need to put the safeguards that we normally do around that, but it's going to be a lot faster and a lot better than actual humans doing it because we're more error prone at this point.
We're way more error prone. Way more error prone. I had a Tesla, and then it was in the hurricane and got flooded, but the car drove itself. And then people were like trying to say, "Oh, I don't trust it. I don't trust it." I said, "What are you talking about? It's safer than us. The software is safer than humans right now in full self-driving."
Yeah. Now it has unexpected failure modes, right? So it's same thing in Teslas and same thing in software where it's a little too edge on that cliff that you're going there, buddy, that I wouldn't have done, but the Tesla wouldn't have ever fallen asleep. It would never get drunk. And
There
the same
you
thing
go. See,
goes.
there you go.
Yeah.
Human error is 97% of car accidents.
Same thing you go with software, right? Oh, that line of code over there. But at this point, it's pretty rare. And if you use the right sort of structures and testing and mechanisms around that, you can catch most of these
In the testing phase?
in the testing phase.
Okay, before you even release.
Before you release automatic tests, and one of the things that I like to do is also in the software architecture, put different inspection points. So think of those like all the data for this place flows through this one little point. So I can go and just look at the code over here. And if that looks correct, I can have some reasonable assurance that everything to the left of that and to the right of that is pretty good.
Nice.
And auto-generate, you have an interface and you automatically generate code that uses it left and right. So you reduce certain categories of errors that would happen before.
Nice. So what is one of the biggest challenges you had to overcome in your business? And how did you do it?
Constant change. I think that's the biggest thing. You have to be
there's
able
no
to
end
adapt.
to it?
There's just simply no end to it. So you lean into it. For me, the initial challenge as I started going solo by myself, redundant. The biggest challenge that I had when I went solo was finding new customers. So I had to learn a lot of things about sales and marketing that I didn't know before. And I learned the adage of if you don't do any sales and marketing, you're going to have lots of time to do sales and marketing. So that's fun. So I had to figure out how to do both the work with the clients, but also at the same time go on LinkedIn and go on podcasts and talk about what I do. And it's been really a lot of fun because I really enjoy talking about these things. And I think the industry has a lot of places where we can have to learn and go to a different spot that we're at right now. If you look at the forums, everyone's challenged with burnout and people quitting and all that stuff. So that was one of my big challenges in figuring out, okay, now you have 6 or 7 clients and you're going to be doing sales and marketing, and how do you fit all these? But before the AI age, you want to get some free time and get a 4-hour slot and focus on one thing. Whereas now with the AI thing, it's okay, I can have to learn how to do 6 things at once. And I have to learn how to have the artifacts and documents and notes of how to keep context of where I'm at and make sure I'm moving around. Because you go to this AI and say, okay, go do these things. And that's going to take half an hour to go do it. So then you go to the next AI and say, now go do these things. And you keep circling around. So it's been fun. I never thought that just moving around so many things, I thought it'd be like challenging and complicated, especially at my age of remembering all these things. But it's surprisingly fun. And the satisfaction of shipping so many things is so awesome.
I know that's the part that people love the most, is getting the product out the door.
At the end, people, that's what they want to see, right? You didn't become an engineer to stay in a room and just write code and just sit there and drink Diet Coke. You want to see your stuff come out the door and someone has the satisfaction of using it and saying, hey, I built this. That thing that's being used by a million people out there, I built this. And I think
what's one of the biggest things you've built that everybody would recognize?
Not much I can talk about here. I can maybe speak generically. A couple of things that I'm super proud of recently is that I had a couple of new clients that are completely greenfield projects. And we're able to build something that we'd have thought will take us something like a year. With the help of agents, we've been able to build and go to market in 3 months.
Wow.
So for me, that is super cool, right? And we were initially thinking, oh, we'll hire some engineers. So we have myself part-time as I'm fractional plus an engineer working on it. but we've been able to ship it before we even actually hired someone, as it takes time to do this, to get it out the door. Now, we're still probably going to hire the engineers because we need the continued support and work on this. But I'm super excited as we're putting these practices I mentioned, the four-step framework and various architectural practices in place. And if you do it from a greenfield scenario, you can actually go really quickly.
Nice. Very nice. So what is one of the greatest lessons that you've learned in your career or life? Doesn't matter.
There's I think, is it a Yogi Berra quote? Is the easiest person to fool is yourself? Or that could be Feynman, Richard Feynman, the physicist.
Okay.
You can convince yourself of anything. So one of the things that I've learned is I was the person that shipped the last code that had the last outage. So always challenge yourself and say, okay, what's my blind spot here? What am I missing? What could go wrong? Not to the point where like analysis paralysis and go paranoid and stop shipping anything, but just a healthy amount of skepticism of even just because I thought about it and I think I'm pretty smart doesn't mean I don't make mistakes. So go back and figure it out. And if you have blind spots where you can't see them, go find some friends, go find some experts in a field that can help you see those blind spots, because then you're beginning to get pretty nice coverage across the board. It's especially with sort of some of the sycophantic AIs, it's really easy to talk yourself into a plan that doesn't make any sense whatsoever. So challenge yourself.
Challenge yourself. I like that. So if you could go back to your 20s, and you're probably there, you're probably in your 30s right now, right? So you go back to your 20s and do something different and do something the same. What would you do?
Funny because I'm in my 50s, but if I went to my 20s, I would go kite surf more. And
I don't think they had kite surfing when you were 20.
That's true. I was windsurfing back when I was younger. But in all seriousness, there's a lesson that I learned in there, which is if you ask me what I did for work 20 years ago, exactly to that time, I probably wouldn't remember. But if you told me what fun place I was at 20 years ago, I could probably figure that one out. So don't defer having fun for work forever. That was a lesson for me. I might have deferred a little too much, so I'm trying to catch up with it right now. And being an independent business makes that a little bit easier. I like what I do. I enjoy what I do. I'm very passionate about what I do, and I want to do it well. But you got to draw the lines and make sure that's not all consuming, and that you have no life outside work. There's family, there's friends, there's fun stuff to do outside work, and make sure you're allocating average time in there. Maybe I'll build a dashboard for that.
There you go. There you go. I like to tell people my own way is do for a living what you do for free and you're never really working.
That's a nice one too. I really enjoy the software development part, but there's some aspects of getting on the water and doing some other things that are fun there.
How do you like the entrepreneurship part?
I really like it. I've done a lot of entrepreneurship stuff early in my career, did a bunch of startups, worked with a lot of startups, then also went to work for bigger companies near the end of my career. And it was really fun. I worked for Uber on the bikes and scooters project where we took that from 0 to 500,000 rides a month. And that was like a lot of fun and learned a lot from being in the big companies and seeing what cutting edge stuff they do there. That said, big companies kind of work in different timescales and timelines. So after a while, I found that a little bit frustrating of, okay, we can move faster. I want to move faster. So I liked entrepreneurship stuff a bit better. You get the flexibility of working which 24 hours you want to work.
And which 24 hours you want to work.
And seeing the results move around faster.
Nice. Sounds like things are going pretty well for you. Thinking about the future, have you ever been able to create passive income and how did you do it?
No, I have a rental unit downstairs. That's sort of passive income unless there's maintenance. I'm pushing a new product called Team Metrics. You can find it at team-metrics.dev, and that's the dashboard I talked about earlier. I think these are things that I see as being able to scale because the consulting business is based on your time, right? You spend more time on that's how you earn income through coaching and consulting. But building like a SaaS type application is somewhat more passive, right? There's still maintenance and still things you need to do. There's sales and marketing goes with it. There's support and there's other aspects. But I think that kind of expands the offerings from like the stuff that is exactly one-to-one with time to something that gives you higher leverage, not exactly passive, but much higher leverage. So I'm looking into additional areas like that of how to tweak my offerings a little bit to have a bit more diversification.
Sounds good. Wrapping up the interview, wondering what exciting plans you have for the next 6 to 12 months.
We'll be on kite surfing for the next 2 months during the day and working.
You got to tell everybody where you're going
during the evening. Yeah, I'm heading to Greece, take the kids there for the summer, and I camp out a nice island. And it's usually California wakes up at 7 p.m. Greek time, So you can go kite surf all day and then go catch up 7 to midnight and get some work done. And usually early in the morning, it's not blowing, so you can do some catch up in the morning. So that's my exciting non-work plans. In terms of work-related stuff, I'm trying to figure out how to use agents more effectively around the edges of the software development lifecycle. So right now, we can ship a lot of stuff from like the Jira, or no, heavens, not Jira, linear ticket. With this, you create a ticket of what you want, and then we can mostly get that to production fairly easily with sort of agentic tools. But if we have other things like maintenance, someone needs to go look at the logs and make sure nothing's breaking. Someone needs to go talk to customers and nothing's breaking. Someone needs to look at those emails and respond to people. Someone needs to negotiate the specs a bit better. So I'm looking at agentic solutions that help take some of the load up, take some of the load off, and again, move us to a higher abstraction level where we can navigate what we want to build better in each of those my customers' businesses. And then the mechanism to get that into production becomes a bit more automated, a bit faster, happier, better quality.
There you go.
And I'm super excited about that. I think that has a lot of potential as we figure out how to make those tools work.
Nice. If anybody, you'd mentioned something about an offer.
Yeah, you can head up to .com. There's two things you can grab from there. One is go get access to the tool that I just mentioned. So if you're on Linear and you run a software team, you can just go sign up. In 5 minutes, you get a 2-week trial. You can just get a snapshot view of where your team's standing at. And if you'd like to chat more about the results that you see in there, happy to chat. And also I have a free PDF that has different ways of thinking about software development. So again, if you're struggling with some of the things that you heard me talk about and want to read through some different ways of thinking about it, go grab that PDF from cosmicteacups.com and hit me up if you like to chat about any of this stuff.
Where would they find you? How would they get in touch with you? Through the Cosmic Teacup or with the email, or you want to give away an email number?
Cosmic Teacups has all contact info in there. You can also find me a link. I post there about a lot about software development.
Beautiful. Listen, thanks a lot for your time. We really do appreciate it. And thanks for all the very informative field. I am so computer illiterate that it's horrible. I'm like, bring a hammer and I can fix it.
I love getting hands-on with tools. I have my fake background here, but my real office looks similar to this. My kids would just leave too many things on my workbench, but it's always fun to take some of the software stuff and plug it in with real hardware, and see what happens. So I appreciate and I like that side of things. Thanks for having me on. It was really fun talking about all these things.
Thank you for being on the show. Really appreciate it. For everybody else, can subscribe for more content like this, and we'll see you on the backside. Thank you, Thanos, for this great interview. Appreciate it.
Thanks for listening to Driven, the Unscripted Success Podcast. Want to share your story? Apply to be a guest at drivensuccesspodcast.com/guest.